my youngest memories are, me heading out after breakfast on a Saturday into the woods and my mom telling me to be home when the sun came down.
And it was the red-tailed hawk. And like I said earlier, if a red-tail thinks he or she can hold something down, she's going for it. The rod got hit so hard, it felt like someone shot a rifle round through my kayak. It hit so hard. I mean, my heart jumped. Welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. If you're like me and you love the outdoors, you may want to subscribe. In this channel, I don't hunt with a gun and I don't hunt with a bow, I hunt with a hawk. And as the seasons change, I fish from a kayak. These are my passions. And this is fins and talons.
You kayak fish for giant giant catfish, is that right?
Yeah. I've always fished, since I was little. Grew up. I was born at Langley Air Force Base near Norfolk, Virginia, and my mom would drop my brother and I off at the Chesapeake Bay at a pier, and we'd fish and crab and all that. We'd get clams and we'd have a big seafood boil in the evenings. But it started from there. But yeah, we moved to Ohio, Pennsylvania, and then Ohio, and just always been fishing. And then COVID hit in early 2020, and I was like, I have to have something else to do, So because I knew falconry season, well, at least for a red-tailed hawk, I'm hunting squirrels and rabbits. That's out the first week of March, so I knew I had to have something to do. So I got a kayak, and then I found out that there's a group of guys that do tournament kayak catfishing, and actually that I think it was the first or second year of kayak catfishing, I tied into a 54-pound flathead, which is still my biggest flathead I've gotten to date. And I was hooked. I mean, I was hooked before that, but when I hit that one, I was like, this is crazy.
So what does it feel like being in a kayak, having a fish almost as long as your kayak, pulling on the other end of the line?
It's wild. And we do have the trolling motors usually on the bow of our kayaks, so which have usually all of ours have spot lock, so that helps me keep in place at least. But I have tied into them where I'm not using spot lock, and you go for a ride. But the toughest thing is getting them in the kayaks and try not to flip. Even our big kayaks, they can support 600-700 pounds, but when you've got like 50-60 pounds on one side of the kayak, you kind of have to put your weight on the other side as you bring them in. So yeah, I've flipped one kayak. It was my first one. It was just a little piece of junk I got at Cabela's just to try it out, and I went out when I shouldn't have in some crazy waves and ended up rolling it. So I learned my lesson there, and I got a bigger kayak. But it's a blast. Yep.
I grew up fishing in the South as well, and same story. Man, I think about how my parents just took my brother and I and dropped us off at a pond in a cow pasture. Dropped it at one time. I literally almost drowned. I had to be 7 or 8 years old, and we were catfishing with cane poles near a dam, and I didn't know how to swim, and I slipped in and was the dam was just pushing me under round and round and round. And my brother couldn't swim either, but he turned his cane pole around and pulled me out. It just, you think about how our parents were just, so chill and laid back about that kind of stuff.
For sure.
When we were kids, man, my wife, she would not hear of, no way we'd be dropping
there's no way.
The
times have changed. Yeah, my parents would just dump us off at the pier, and we'd just be fishing with strangers, or in summertime when I was out of school, 7, 8, 9 years old, my parents would just go to work.
Exactly.
I was on a myself and doing my own thing. So
that's what got me to fall in love with wildlife. And, I'd love to hear if you think it's the same with you, is, with that kind of, liberty as a kid. I mean, even my youngest memories are, me heading out after breakfast on a Saturday into the woods and my mom telling me to be home when the sun came down.
for sure.
And just that kind of connection with nature has been part of my life. Did you have a similar upbringing with your parents?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I lived on after Virginia, we moved to Pennsylvania, and um, I was just kind of out on my own a lot, and so went out into the woods and fished and hunted, and that's kind of where it all started for sure. Kind of made me introverted a little bit too.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but yeah, my best friends were animals. Our
Mhm.
cows we had and pigs and the dog and all that. So, but
My
yeah,
mom in Tennessee, my mom was afraid to come down into the basement because it was a not a finished basement, and that was where I kept whatever critters I had brought home
yeah.
from from the woods. She never knew what was going to be down there, but
Yeah, my
um,
dad my dad went into our shed. I think I was 12, and he heard something in the back of the shed, and he went back there, and I had a big cardboard box with three baby raccoons in there, and I'd had them for 3 weeks by then, and I was giving them baths, and they were gardening with me, crawling up my legs, and didn't go over well with my dad, but yeah, their mom had got hit right by my house, so I was like, I'm going to take care of them, but
it's awesome.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
same.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about, while we're, hitting the fish first, which I didn't expect to do, but um, I mean, I grew up around the Mississippi River Delta, and I mean, we have some massive catfish. But what we have up here, what they call catfish up here, I live on fresh water, cold water. I mean, a cold water lake. We don't even have bass in this
Yeah.
lake. They're still trying to break into this chain of lakes, but the thankfully there's some waterfalls that have kept them from coming up here. So we've got cold water fisheries up here, and what they call catfish up here, isn't what I fished for as a kid.
Yeah.
What do you have where you're at, and is it the same species that that they have in the South, and what are the sizes of these things?
Yeah, it's the same here in Ohio as it is down south. The biggest ones are blue cats and flatheads here. And then we have channel cats. Our channel cats are pretty decent. It seems like if you go a little further north, the channel cats really get big. I believe Wisconsin has some pretty big channel cats. And as you go west, I think some guys out in maybe Nebraska, there's some donkeys out west, but typically up north and then way down south, the channel cats they don't get very big. But for our flatheads, I think our state record flathead is like 76 pounds. But you go south and they're heading 90s. I think the world record is like 123. And then blue cats, kind of the same thing. Our state record blue cat was just broken uh, by I think it was like a limb line or a float or something. It wasn't rod and reel, but it was down near Cincinnati along the Ohio River, and we had some flooding, and they were fishing some back creeks where the big fish will get out of the strong current, and it was about 101 pounds. That's a monster for Ohio. We normally are higher end. We usually see 50s, 60s here in Ohio. We're down south. It's nothing for some of those southern rivers and lakes to hit 115, 120 for blue cats. So we've got some
You
big
tr-
ones, but they're not as big as down south.
you travel for tournaments. Do you go down there for tournaments or?
Yeah. So our tournament trail is the online catfishing tournaments. It's for mostly the national trail is just for kayaks. They have other tournaments where boats are invited, bank fishing's invited, but yeah, the trail goes down to I think this year Alabama, Tennessee. I think one tournament in Texas, Louisiana, uh, and then a couple in Ohio. So yeah, it kind of travels around. Sometimes we'll hit the Carolinas. Um, we have not hit Virginia yet, but yeah, it's pretty neat. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but
Yeah.
it makes it worth it when you tie into one of those giants. Especially on a kayak. I had two boats before, and it was fun, but nothing compares to a kayak. I really don't have any desire to go back to a boat other than like if I want to take some friends or family out. But when when you have a 40 or 50 pound blue hit your rod on a kayak, it shakes the whole kayak. Like I caught a 47-pound flathead once. It was early morning, April. I had a live bluegill on. I just got set up. It was like 6 a.m. Just set the rod in the rod holder. Bluegill was about a foot off the bottom, and I reached for my other rod to get it set up, and the rod got hit so hard it felt like someone shot a rifle round through my kayak. It hit so hard. I mean, my heart jumped, and you could just see, the flathead. They'll strike hard, but then they'll just sit there with it, and you could just see a little bit of weight. I knew it was a monster. A little 10-pounder wouldn't hit like that. So yeah, it ended up being 47 pounds, but it's hard to compare. Kayaks and boats. It's fun.
So when you don't have your trolling motor locked on the position, you said you could go for a ride. Like, what kind of ride are we talking about here? Like, how?
I mean, you're going to get pulled. I'm not saying like, if you were in the ocean getting pulled by something big, but because we still make a lot of drag, with our they're usually about 13, 14 feet long, 40, 42 inches wide, and then all the crap that we put on
That's
our
a big
kayak.
kayak. Yeah, that's a big
Yeah,
kayak.
so but you really don't want to go for a ride because then the fish are going to look for structure to get into.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
that spot lock will help you keep them away from things. I've lost, and we all have. We've lost some giants, and it's kind of a balance with those big fish. I mean, you can't tighten your drag down too much. You can't horse them. Like they're going to do what they want for a little bit. So just to keep them out of that brush and stuff, but not tighten your drag down too much where you break something. That's why we run heavier, 50, 80 pound braid and mono. So, nothing breaks or it can withstand going into brush under all that pressure. So,
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much I want to talk to you about. We're both dog men.
yeah,
I just passed my falconry exam, so
congrats.
I'm chomping at the bits to add a red tail to my life. So we'll get to that. But before we leave the fishing topic, I also saw that you do some ice fishing, and we have I know it's Maine's largest ice fishing derby. It could be. I'm pretty sure it's regionally it's a $75,000 purse on the lake right here in front of my house.
Oh, wow.
So you should come up
That's,
and enter an ice fishing derby
you
this
guys are
this
taking it
winter.
pretty serious up there.
Oh,
Jeez.
and it's cold water, so you're talking about togue, landlocked salmon, brook trout,
Oh, wow.
lake trout, all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, my buddies and I just started messing with lake trout. Now that we have live scope, we can kind of go after them a little more. They go down so deep; they're kind of tough to chase. But
Yeah, that's been my. Like I said, I'm not much of a fisherman. I like to go and throw a line in, but I'm catching the sunfish and the whitefish and all that stuff because I
hmm
don't know what I'm doing. And last year for Father's Day, my boys and I went out on a fishing boat, and then last weekend my girls and I went out on a fishing boat and just threw some lines in. But I know people are hauling massive fish out of the lake, but like you said, they're so deep, and um, you know, I've got night crawlers. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just throwing
yeah,
lines in, having a
yeah,
good
that's
time.
still fun. Yeah, it's still
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Clayton Schick is on YouTube, and I forget what province in Canada, but he really likes to go after the giant lakers, and he catches just monsters like 30 some pounders. So he's fun to watch on YouTube for lake trout.
yeah, I have to check that out for sure. Yeah, I
Yeah,
need to learn. Especially if I'm going to continue living on this premier cold water lake. I need to
you got to get on
figure.
it up there, man.
I got to figure out some stuff.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your family's a lot like mine. I think I heard that you came from a military family. I signed up at 18 years old. I have three sons. My oldest has actually finished his tour, and I have two that are serving right now. And it's kind of like a man's rite of passage at 18 years old. You go and you swear in, and you went and swore in at 18, but you did it in the police force. Is that right?
I did, yeah. I did want to go into the military. My dad was in the Navy, and he was a fire chief. And but I ended up. My brother's about 7 years older than me, and he went into the Ohio State Highway Patrol. And of course, I have to do whatever he does. So he would show me videos of his all the stuff he would get into. I'm like, yeah, I got to do that. But when I was 14 years old, I saw a state trooper with a this big black shepherd, like jet black. And I asked my dad, I said, what do they do with those dogs? And he told me what they do. The narcotics detection or explosives detection and tracking, and all that. So I'm like, yeah, I have to do that. So I made that decision when I was 14 that one, I wanted to be a cop, and two, I want to be a canine handler. So that was the goal. So when I turned 18, is my senior year in high school, I found out in Ohio that uh, you can go to the police academy while you're still in high school, as long as you're 18 and you graduate from high school before you graduate from the police academy. So that's what I did. So in the weekdays after school, I'd get my homework done after school, and then I go to the police academy in the evening till 10 p.m. and go home, go back to school in the morning, and then we had Saturdays off, and then all day Sunday was, or maybe it was all day Saturday and whatever. We had one day off a week, but I did that, and then yeah, I started as a deputy sheriff in 2005. So yeah, it's been 20 years now. So
That's awesome. And I know that your passion for falconry started even before that, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But uh, I've I tell people the reason, when people ask me why I have so many sled dogs, I tell them this is what happens when your parents don't allow you to have a dog as a kid.
yeah,
I
you made
I
up
got
for it.
I made up for it. So, the moment I moved out of the house and, I was 20 years old, I had a breeding pair of Rottweilers, had a breeding pair of Irish Wolfhounds for a while. And then just kind of locked in on sled dogs. But 5 years ago, we got a German Shepherd male. His name is Remy, and we just got a female for him that's hitting on six. No, she's 7 months old now, Riley. So we have a couple German Shepherds. Those are our house pets now. And man, they are just wired different than any other animal, any other dog that I've ever worked with before. Um, even Rottweilers. I mean, I worked with Rottweilers. They were so, uh, I think I guess what I'm saying is, I would with other breeds when I'm having problems, they they understand structure. They like hierarchy. They're pack animals, so if they understand that you're the alpha, everything just falls in line. But you can't intimidate a German Shepherd. That's been my experience. You can't because they seem to be hardwired to. And I'd like for you to fill me in on this because I've only got this experience with this one, but man, he just seems like I mean, there was one time when he growled at my wife, so I stepped up to put him in his place, and the more I tried to intimidate him, the more he would raise to meet my level of intensity.
Yeah,
And I realized the strategy that I used with other breeds wasn't going to work with him. That I had to like switch his mentality. Like instead of matching aggression with aggression, I would just start giving him commands, and he would just start doing whatever I told him to do because he wants to work, he wants to
yeah,
please me. But man, you don't try and intimidate a German Shepherd.
yeah, yeah. The shepherds are about here, and the Belgian Malinois are about here, and then the
That's what
Dutch
I've
shepherds
heard.
are another story that they're a lot of them have some short, but no, that's for sure. I mean, they definitely have to be respected, and they know it. My wife has a bruiser. He's a cross. He's a half German Shepherd, half Belgian Malinois, and he he's definitely about the pecking order. He knows where everyone stands, and he's all about like respect. And if you try to disrespect him, he's not a fan of it.
He'll
So
let you know.
he'll let
Yeah,
you know. Yeah, so everything's fine as long as everything's fair. If they feel like you did them wrong, they're not about it. It's a different world with these dogs for
right,
sure.
right.
They are
And with every other breed, again, including Rottweilers, I had back in my early 20s, I had 5 total. And, you know, I just, and with my sled dogs, if there's a dog fight, if I'm establishing pecking order, pinning the dog, that's what mushers do. We'll
Mhm.
pin the dog to the ground, until the dog acknowledges, yes, you're over me, that kind of thing. I had to learn really quick that I needed a whole new set of strategies with this guy. He's awesome, and like you said, he's one of the most loving dogs that we've ever had. Very protective of the home. He won't. If I bring someone into the house and set them down and then introduce him, he's fine with them. But if they walk onto our property, by themselves or pull up in the driveway and get out, there's going to be a problem. And that's not something that I've had to teach him. He's just,
Right.
very, very intuitively that way. So yeah, I mean, maybe you have some thoughts on all of that, and has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, yeah, it's very loyal dogs, and you know they don't care. I mean, they'll lay their life down for you. They don't care if there's 20 people trying to break into your house. They're gonna do everything they can to protect you. But yeah, it's definitely have to be respected, and it's like I said, I've never worked with a German Shepherd. I've seen them. I've seen other handlers with Shepherds, a lot of Belgian Malinois, but they both have their pros and cons. But if you can, if the dog is obedient, very obedient, it definitely helps. I personally would not have a Mal as a pet. Maybe a Shepherd, but I don't know. It just depends on the Shepherd too. I mean, and if I would have one as a pet, I would have it. I would have all the obedience on it. I would, because I'm not a trainer. I'm just the handler. Um, but I would pay a pretty penny to have the obedience put on the dog, and do those training sessions with a trainer, because
Hmm.
he could be in a world of trouble with a high drive dog, and you have to have the time for him too. You
Yeah,
know, it's not something you can just lock up and leave all day and come
yeah,
back in the evening. I mean they're working dogs, and
yeah,
that's another reason why you know I it's too big of a dog to use with falconry, at least for me. So I would want a smaller dog for falconry. So
hmm,
I wouldn't have much purpose for it at home, at least a Belgian Malinois. Like I said, the shepherds seem to be a lot more laid back.
yeah. I've heard that Belgian Malinois are like German Shepherds on steroids, and
They are.
I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, it's like the shepherds. If you tell them to do something, a building search or whatever, they really like analyze. They think about things. They take their time. They're very meticulous. And the Belgian Malinois skips all of that and just does it. And so it's like I said, there's pros and cons, but as long as the Mal is trained right and obedient, it's nice to have that drive. I mean, it's all the drive
Mhm.
you want. But and there's some shepherds they don't have much drive. I mean, I've seen some Mals they don't have real high drive either, but there's no off switch. A lot of the handlers joke about that. There's just no off switch on these Belgian Malinois. They're always on.
Yeah,
So
and in the sled dog world, it's the same thing. I made the same mistake that so many mushers make when they first get into it. They, watch Disney movies, Eight Below, Iron Will, all that, stuff, and so
stuff.
they go and buy or adopt show or pet line Siberian Huskies, and then wonder why, you know that they physically could go more than 2 or 3 miles. They just don't want to.
Right.
And, just the drive's not there. And, so after a little while, you realize, okay, there are working lines, and then there are the pet lines. And
Right.
there's a huge difference. And,
Yeah.
the show dog ring has ruined more breeds than it has saved.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And with both the Rotties and the German Shepherds, what I've seen, we just had this the other day. One of the people from our church stopped by to visit, and the more my German Shepherd would bark at our guest as she was coming toward the house, the more my wife, was, Remy, stop, no, no, Remy, no. And the more she did that,
Just
he
brought
he
her up.
was he was feeding off of my
Yeah.
wife's nervous energy.
Hmm.
And so I just opened the door. Honey, don't do that. I said, Remy, sit. And he stopped, and just sat. And I was like, come inside. And he came inside, no barking, no, they just want that. They want that direction, and they're willing to please you, but you got to be careful with them. It seems, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I was wondering, as we segue into falconry, I'm kind of thinking about, because my dogs will stay close to me and they've got good noses. They like to snoop around and, that kind of thing. I was wondering if just flushing, if you didn't think maybe a shepherd would be good for just flushing game for the hawk. You don't think
Yeah.
so?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't think you'll have to worry about the hawk going after the dog. It's sometimes a worry for falconers who use the really small dogs with red tails. So you don't have to worry about that. But if you do, then you've got a pretty tough hawk that is willing to take down 100-pound shepherd. But sometimes I don't know how your brush is up there, but our briar patches here, like if I told my Mal to go into a big briar patch, he'll get poked once and he'll be like, I'm not going in that. Where these little wiener dogs, they'll go right in there and they'll flush 3 rabbits out of it. A big briar patch. So their size really helps. And then the other issue is with a big dog, long legs is so yeah, it jumps the rabbit, but if the hawk doesn't see it or doesn't get it right off the rip, where the little dogs can turn the rabbits back to you and the hawk. They're real slow. The many dachshunds just move at a real slow pace, which is what we want for to work with the hawk and us. Where if a shepherd actually tracks a rabbit, you know how fast a shepherd can go, or any big dog. I mean, they could push a rabbit out, or probably put too much pressure on it and put it down into the hole. Something like that. So the little mini dachshunds and
Gotcha.
uh, just the little terriers and Jack Russells and all that. Those seem to be the best fit for falconry. But I'm not saying it can't be done. But the dog definitely needs to know it can't get close to a hawk with a rabbit or a squirrel it just caught, because the hawk is going to grab it by the nose, and then all hell's going to break loose. So you definitely have to wed the hawk and the dog together and get them used to each other, and so yeah.
Yeah, one thing I don't have to worry about up here, unfortunately, is our game going to ground. I live so far north. I live 2 hours north of my sponsor, and my sponsor has a gray squirrel. We don't have any gray squirrel. We just have red. And southern Maine has rabbits. We don't have any rabbits up here. We just have snowshoe hare.
Wow.
So it's gonna be a tough gig up here for me, but at least the hair don't go to ground. So I've
Yeah.
got that going for me. But a lot of thick brush, like you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be I would imagine that'll be with a red tail, that'll be your primary quarry would be snowshoe hare.
Yeah. So just you're our first falconer on the podcast, so maybe tell our listeners, because this is an adventure podcast. We talk about all kinds of things here. So tell us what falconry is, specifically here in North America, and tell us how you got into it.
Yeah, so falconry is the sport of taking wild game with a trained raptor, and that could be a wild caught bird or a captive bred bird. I've always flown with wild trapped birds, except for last maybe 2 seasons ago. Um, I got a Harris hawk that was captive bred from a breeder in Kentucky. But yeah, basically, you start off your first couple years either an American kestrel or a red-tailed hawk is what you usually start out with. Typically, there's a sponsor and apprentice. The sponsors kind of help out the apprentices for a couple years till they're on their own. But typically, you don't want to start out with an American kestrel. You're not going to learn as much from it. You're kind of limited on what you can catch, which is bugs, sparrows, starlings, or voles or mice. So, red-tailed hawk, if it can hold something down, if it believes it has a chance of holding something down, it's going to go after it. My red tails have hit geese before, and you know how big those are compared to a red tail. So, but yeah, so I was in fourth grade, and my teacher had us read the book called My Side of the Mountain, which are you familiar with that?
Well, it just we listen to podcasts, and just about everyone that gets asked, "How did you get into falconry?" I mean, 90% of them will bring up that book, that children's book, My Side of the Mountain. So I went and I listened to the audio book of it, and I'm like, man, it's not even that good of a book. I'm sure that's going to offend a lot of people in the falconry world, but I hear there are sequels, so I'll check those out.
So I just read the book, and it was just My Side of the Mountain, no sequels or anything like that. And I thought the book was good, but I was also a kid when I read it, so I read it a few more times as I got a little older. But yeah, just the whole thing of him, running away, living in the Catskill Mountains in New York, and making it on his own, and then the whole getting a little peregrine falcon out of the nest and training it and hunting with it. I'm like, that's actually a thing. But I never thought much of it as I got older. I just, that was always in the back of my head. I thought that was cool, but I never knew falconry was a thing here in Ohio, or I never really like looked into it. And fast forward to, I was 18 years old, a new police officer. I was working part time for the Bridgeport Police Department in Eastern Ohio, and I walked into the department, and on the dispatcher's desk was a newspaper with a guy holding a red-tailed hawk on the front page. I was like, "What? What's the story behind that?" I figured it's probably from some other country or something. I don't know. And I looked, and it was the city right next to us. So I got a hold of him. That ended up being my sponsor, Mick Brown, and we yeah. I only hunted with him a few times, and I was all over him. I was like, "Hey, I have to do this." And he's trying to, because we talk more people out of falconry than getting them into it. It's a big commitment, time, money, all that. And he was still trying to talk me out of it, and I was 100% adamant. So he's like, "All right, I'll sponsor you." So I took the test and passed and built my buildings and got my first red tail, and been having a blast ever since. So the only thing I will
How
say,
long have you been doing it? How long have you been in falcon?
I've been
How long have
well
you been in falconry?
about 20 years, same as I've been an officer guy. I started as a police officer and a deputy sheriff right before I got into falconry. So yeah, 20 years on both. But my if I could change one thing, being a falconer is making a building that can be moved with a tow truck, because that's been my biggest hang up over the years. Every time I would move, I always had a building that was kind of too big, or uh, it was built into the ground, you know. And now I have something. I'm not planning on going anywhere unless my wife gives me the boot. But it's something that can be loaded up onto a tow truck and moved somewhere else. And that's, I wish, I wish I had something like that. I'm Actually, I've got a apprentice this season. Her and I will be trapping here in about a week or so. But I told her, I said, hey, make a hawk house, a muse that can be moved. So that's what she did. But
That's exactly what I did, and I don't know where I picked up that advice. It might have been from one of your YouTube shows, but we're considering the purchase of a big 170-acre farmhouse, which means we would be leaving the lake house here. And just because we had that on our radar as a possible move, I decided that I was going to build a something that I could that was sturdy enough that I could jack up and put a trailer under it and move it if we needed to, so I wouldn't have to, build it all back again from the ground up. So I probably got that advice from you. So thank you for that.
oh, not a problem.
Loving your podcast, by the way. I mean your YouTube channel. I've been following it for a while and love watching your hawks. And talking about your hawks, you are a master falconer then. And despite being a master falconer, you have decided to stick with red-tailed hawks. So tell me about that decision. Usually people, and I'm putting this in air quotes, usually people graduate after their sponsorship to goshawks or falcons, that kind of thing. But I'm hearing a lot of people say that not only is the red tail a great beginner bird, it's a great master's bird too. So maybe you want to speak to that.
It's funny. I do see that, and I feel that a lot in the falconry community. That, oh, you have a red-tailed hawk, and every bird has its pros and cons. I maybe a Finnish goshawk can basically hunt whatever it wants. It's got the speed, it's got the weight, but goshawks can be temperamental. But I don't know if there's a perfect bird out there. But in 2000, it's 2006 maybe, I or about there, I went to the Pennsylvania um, falconry field meet, and they had a falconer from Texas there as a guest speaker, Gary Brewer. And if you haven't read his book, it's a pretty good read. Although you don't have squirrels in your area, it's called Buteos and Bushy Tails, and it's about hunting squirrels with red tails. But he spoke at the falconry meet there, and uh, when he talked about the red tail, he said, "Hey, I flew this, I flew that, everything that all falconers want to do. They want to try all these different birds." And he finally realized what the best bird was for him in the state he was in, and it was the red-tailed hawk. And like I said earlier, if a red tail thinks he or she can hold something down, she's going for it, and that's what I love about them. And they're we've got hills here where I live in Ohio, so falcons aren't exactly the best choice because they tend to go so far up and so far out, and you kind of want some wide open country. But there's to me, like, I do like to rabbit hunt, but squirrel hunting with a red-tailed hawk is the most fun I've ever had. Like, I've had people on their knees laughing and crying because it's just so funny. Like, I had my wife was in college and uh, came to visit her, brought the red tail with me, and we were chasing squirrels in on her campus, which I don't sure that wasn't allowed. But I think the statute of limitations is over on that by now, so I should be good. But we were chasing squirrels, and the red tail was chasing a huge fox squirrel, and it jumped out of the tree. The red tail will ladder up, and once they get good and know what they're doing, they'll ladder up and push the squirrel to the very top of the tree, where the squirrel has no choice but to jump off the top of the tree, and it could be 60, 70, 80 feet. Well, it jumped out, and the squirrel almost landed on my wife's head, and then the hawk went right over her head too after it. And I was laughing and running, after the hawk and the squirrel, but things like that. I mean, you know, there's not a there's not a whole lot of scenarios that can compare to red tails on squirrels. I've chased, I've had chases that'll last a minute, and I've had them last an hour and a half on the same squirrel. I mean, and you get to see everything, where it's right above you, in front of you, um, and yet there is a chance that the squirrels can bite the hawk's feet, and it actually turns a lot of falconers off from hunting squirrels. But in my 20 years, and it's mostly been squirrel hunting with red tails, I've had two, I would say, severe bites. One, it was the small toe. It just needed reattached, so had a vet reattach the tendon in the small toe, and then another one that bit the hawk right above the beak, near the sear, and I would say that was semi severe. It didn't. It just, I cleaned it up and it healed over pretty quick. Other than that, it's just been little nicks. But I've seen more birds
And the important,
get hurt by.
I was just going to say that the important thing for people to understand about that is this is what they're hunting in the wild. This is their natural prey species. It's not like you're forcing your hawk to hunt something it wouldn't be hunting on its own, right?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm letting the hawk go after it's been manned and trained and everything. I'm letting it go, and I'm jumping game, and she's making the decision on what she wants to chase. It's, just because I'm jumping something and I want her to chase it doesn't mean she's going to go after it. I'm going to try to get my red tail on geese this season, but she may not go after them. Once they're successful with something, they don't always want to just chase everything in sight. But the red tails are very opportunistic, so we'll see how she does. But the first hawk that I kept last season, she lived on a golf course, if you remember that video. And that family
Yes.
of red tails, actually, there's two families of red tails on this golf course, and they, like, I would say 80% of what they were eating were squirrels, gray squirrels, fox squirrels. I mean, there's pictures from the employees at the golf course, always taking pictures of them with a squirrel on their feet, up in a tree or down on the ground. Um, so yeah, I mean, we can control we can control things. I can take the red tail to just a place where it's primarily rabbits, um, but rabbits and squirrels is what I primarily hunt with. I have caught two ducks, two hen mallards with my red tails before, but it's got to be the right setup. The red tails are kind of like semi trucks. They like to get up high and then just use gravity and their weight to come down. That's where they get their speed. They're not going to tail chase on flat ground like a goshawk would. So, but yeah, we have gotten a couple ducks and almost got a couple geese, but both times the red tail hit the back, like the center back of the goose, and it was just
Hmm.
so she didn't really have anything to hold on to. If she hit it in the neck or the head or the wings, probably would have had a better shot. But yeah.
Have you thought about? And I'm asking because I'm curious as I move into this. We have Canada geese galore where I live, and turkeys on the rise, but I'm guessing that would be probably too dangerous. I am a little curious about groundhogs, although I'm guessing that might be a little too dangerous for them too. I don't know, but have you thought about like a baggie to game your hawk to geese?
To use them as a baggie, is that what you
Yeah,
asked?
to just to wet it to yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't if she doesn't go after them with me giving her the opportunities. But if I would bag her, it would be on a domestic goose. Um, but it's kind of like it's not a huge deal if she doesn't go after them. I'm just going to go squirrel and rabbit hunt. But if I give her the a good opportunity a few times, I'd be surprised if she doesn't. Just a big hungry female red tail. They feel like they can take down the world. and they hit brush hard and everything. So yeah, we'll see. I did want to get her in on the early goose season in September, but she's still molding her feathers, and she's at a higher weight right now. So I don't want to drop her weight fast. So realistically, I probably won't be able to make the early goose season. It'll be the regular seasons this coming hunting season. But
And that's Xena, right?
yep, Xena. Yep, yeah. She hunted.
So why don't you tell us? I'm
Go
sorry. Why
ahead.
don't you tell us about Scarlet, which was an amazing bird? Tell us about Scarlet and why you ended up cutting her loose, and then bring us up to speed on Xena.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I did like Scarlet at first, but the big problem with her was she did not want to hunt with other people. She really didn't want to hunt with me, to tell you the truth. And every bird is different. Not every bird's. We're asking a lot of a wild bird, and it's not like we just took them out of the nest. They've been out on their own for several months, so we're asking them to hunt with us, hunt with groups of people. So I don't get too upset when it doesn't work out, but I would put her up in a tree. She had chased a couple rabbits in front of people, but then she would just shut down if she missed the rabbit. So I ended up letting her go, but I got stuck with $1,000 vet bill when I got her. I noticed that she had a hard time, like she would lose her breath pretty easily during training and hunting, and she would be panting over things that she shouldn't be panting over. So you have to watch upper respiratory problems with these birds. And I've never had an upper respiratory problem with any of my birds, but I got nervous pretty quick, so I rushed her to the to an avian vet I have nearby, and I told them, hey, I've only had her for you know a week or two, whatever it was. I don't remember how long I had her at the time, and I said I don't know what it is, and they definitely noticed her breathing issues pretty quick, but they ran all the tests and um, sedation and the whole 9 yards, and you know it found come to find out it was just she was overrun with internal parasites and worms, which is common. I would say probably every bird in the wild has some to some degree, but she was just overrun with them. So they treated her for that, but it was like $950 when the dust settled, and then to follow that up, she didn't want to hunt with people. So yeah, I ended up releasing her after I realized that I tried her at different weights. Everything's based off of weight with these birds. We weigh them once or twice a day, and once I realized that I ran her up and down in her weight window, and she was I'm not going to hunt with people. That was just period. So I let her go. I put her right back where I trapped her, where Jeb and I trapped her, and but just goes to show, you know, some people get upset when they see trapping these birds from the wild, and we do a lot of good for these birds. And that's just one
Yeah,
example.
talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so that bird would have died, like hands down, and the vet confirmed probably by December she would have been dead. Um, so, but that's not the big thing that I would say falconers do for these wild birds. I think the big thing is we take a bird from the wild. Its parents taught it how to catch mice. That's their primary food source. They sit on a telephone pole, they sit in a dead tree overlooking a hayfield or whatever, and they hunt mice. And the little ones see parents doing this. Okay, I can hunt mice. And wintertime comes and we get a foot of snow. Maybe we get a layer of ice over the snow. I don't need to explain all that to you with all the snow and ice. But that bird that only knows how to hunt mice is dead because all the mice are burrowing. They're staying under the snow. They're not owls. They can't hear the mice under the snow. They don't know how to chase a squirrel. Rabbits, maybe it sees a flock of geese. It doesn't have, it's just no experience at all other than just catching mice. So a bird that a falconer has hunted with for 1, 2, 3, 7 years is a killing machine, and it's confidence. Confidence to, hey, if it's negative 20 degrees, there's no mice out, there's nothing, but there's a flock of geese standing in a frozen cornfield. That bird can go out there and hit a goose or hit a squirrel in a tree or go after a big rabbit, something. They have the confidence, they have the knowledge. A red tail that's killed 500 squirrels with a falconer over the years, all right, is gonna it's not gonna die from starvation. I'll tell you that it's gonna die from something else in the wild. So I think that's the number one thing that falconers do for wild birds. And typically, we're
What
releasing
are
them
the
after
going
years.
Yeah, what's the going percentage of the statistics right now for the the chances of a wild raptor reaching maturity in the wild versus those that are brought into falconry?
I've heard 80 to 90% of juvenile birds don't make it to their second year. That's the number I've heard, um, and I believe that. Several years ago, I was hunting with my first red tail, and it was the dead of winter and snow on the ground, whole 9 yards. And I jumped a rabbit, and red tail was right along a field and a wood line, and the rabbit was just running along the edge of the wood line, and my red tail came down and slammed it. And before I could get to my bird, another wild, and it ended up being a juvenile, came down and was just gliding down. I was worried it was going to hit my red tail and kill it, but it came flying in and grabbed a hold of the back end of the rabbit. My red tail had a hold of the head of the rabbit, and this juvenile got a hold of the back end, and I got up to it. And I thought for sure when I got up to both birds and the rabbit, the wild one would take off. It would not let go of the rabbit. So I dispatched the rabbit, and I put my leash on my hawk's jesses, and it's the wild red tail was still just sitting there. It looked like a male to me, the size of it, but real skinny. I mean, it was not doing well. That's why it wasn't afraid of me. It was life or death, and I would have ideally, if someone was there, they could have helped me. I was so far away from my truck in the snow. Ideally, I would have liked to take that bird to a rehab facility, but I wasn't able to do it with my bird by myself, and I had a long walk in the snow back to my truck. So what I did was I just took my knife out and I cut the rabbit in half, and I let the wild hawk keep the back half of the rabbit, and we left with the front half. And at least I gave it some food, to get it through for a little while. But that's prime example that those juvenile birds, they don't do well on their own. Just the other day, my buddy sent me a picture of a juvenile red tail that recently flew the nest, and it's sitting on top of someone's house. That's not a normal perch for a wild red tail. So they're very inexperienced and acting like kids right now.
That's, that's kind of that your decision to help that bird out's kind of one of the things that propelled me along this falconry journey. Was it had to be like 15 years ago. We were homesteading up on Flat Mountain in northern Maine, and we were having, actually it was 2009 winter because it was a record snowfall year. It was a really harsh winter, and I had chickens, Brahmas, and if you know anything about chickens, the Brahma's a big chicken.
Oh yeah,
And while I was actually in my ornithology class at the University of Maine, a northern goshawk chased after our chickens into the chicken coop, and then came out of the chicken coop fighting our rooster, killed the rooster. And when I pulled up into my driveway, my oldest son comes running out, "Dad, and eagle killed our rooster, and eagle killed our rooster." And it wasn't an eagle, but he didn't know.
yeah.
And so I went back, and I've got some excellent photos because this goshawk was hungry. And there was a beautiful, large female, mature, blood red eyed, goshawk. sitting in the trees looking at her kill. And I took a gamble because I knew that they could get used to pecking off chickens. And but I also knew that it was an extreme winter and she had worked really hard for that kill.
Right.
So I threw it in the back of the field and let her have it. She came down to it and I was snapping a lot of photos of it. And so I was like, man, one day I'm going to do falconry with a goshawk, with a northern goshawk. That was kind of my drive from that experience. But and I'm in a really good position to do it. And I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. My sponsor, her and her husband are goshawk people, and they really they know the region and help other falconers line up a goshawk from a nest here in the area. We live
Oh
in
yeah.
goshawk country, so
Sure.
we're talking grouse and snowshoe hare. That's the primary prey up here, and a
Yeah.
goshawk has the speed to hit those grouse. And
Yep.
but after doing all of the study, 6 months of a deep dive for my falconry exam, I realized that the red-tailed hawk might, for the foreseeable future, at least, with my commitments to the Seppala Siberian Sleddog, preserving that breed. I'm the president of the breed club, um, and to your point earlier, to circle back to that, you're not less than because you're flying a red tail. And so I really think for this stage in my life where I'm at right now and what I'm doing, that that high intensity, high maintenance, hunt me every day, goshawk,
Yeah.
just might not be for me yet. And I'm really looking forward to getting a good red tail this season.
Yeah. You're gonna have fun and make a lot of memories. I mean, I remember when I first started out. There's can't replace that feeling. Trapping your first bird. But even if you don't keep it, just you won't forget trapping your first one. But yeah, the red tail is old faithful, and they can withstand high temperatures and low temperatures. I mean, they're from you know northern Canada, the Arctic, all the way down to like the Bahamas. They're everywhere, and eat iguanas down in Florida, all the way up to snowshoe hares in Canada and Maine, and yeah, I mean they'll hunt with not all of them, but they'll hunt. A lot of them will hunt with groups of people, and like I said, if they think they can hold it down, they're going to try. And I don't. I mean, I may like I am interested in a Finnish goshawk, and I did try American kestrel once, but you can only hunt sparrows and starlings and mice with it, and all she wanted to do was hunt bugs. And I kind of worried about that bird, but I tried to get her to hunt sparrows, but she probably had success hunting bugs, and that's all she would do. So I'm like, what are you going to do in the wintertime? You can't just, there's not going to be bugs around for you to hunt. So, and then I had a hawk. It was actually trapped in it was a juvenile Cooper's hawk. It was trapped in a factory building. And my friend called me and asked me, if I could come get it for him. And I got a Cooper's hawk, permit from the state. And I was like, oh, if I can get this thing, I'll try, hunting with it. He was, I don't know, he was a little nutso. He just always scared of everything. I tried different weights, and he would fly to me and stuff, but he would lay on the glove and just be afraid. And I don't know, maybe he'd been out of the nest too long, but I let him go. I fed him up and put him back to the wild, and at least we got him out of the factory building he was in. But yeah, it's just life's easy with a red tail, and a lot of fun. So yeah, we're looking
Yeah,
forward to.
that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, yep, and
So, in your 20 years of experience with mostly red tails, and for those who don't know the lingo, a tiercel is a male. Have you done seasons with male red tails, or have you just exclusively worked with the larger females?
So I did hunt with one male, and it was only because we had a friend. He was from some eastern state, like Massachusetts or something like that, and he came to Ohio. He trapped a, a male, and he hunted at like 23 ounces. I mean, he was tiny, and he had him for a little bit, but he wanted to get rid of him. But he wanted to release him back in Ohio, so he came back, and Mick and I, my sponsor, we were like, he's a neat bird, and just real friendly bird. I said, I'm willing to hunt with him. Mick was like, I'll take him out too. So it was kind of like a joint bird. We both hunted with him, and I killed the biggest rabbit I've ever killed with him, and he was just a dart. I mean, you know, not much meat on the bird, but man, would he come in fast though. We call them the big woodland rabbits. Mick and I, we jumped this big rabbit in the middle of the woods. It was like a little pile of limbs, and we should have got a weight on it. But we yelled, and the hawk was nowhere near the rabbit. We just thought, the rabbit's going to get away. Well, here comes this missile through the woods like a goshawk, and he actually hit the rabbit from the side, and it was feathers, fur, feathers, fur. They rolled about 6 or 7 times, and he went for a ride. I mean, the rabbit was running around, probably like a red tail on a snowshoe hare up there. He was getting kicked around, and we got there and dispatched the rabbit. And his size compared to the rabbit was just no comparison. But that's the only male that we've ever hunted with, and you know, from what I could tell, he would not want to hit thick brush like a female would. And I've heard other falconers say that the males tend to veer off of like heavy cover, whereas a female, and I've seen it a ton of times with my birds, rabbit runs into a briar patch or a pile of limbs, and the female red tail will just punch right into it, and it looks like a hole, like a missile went through it. They don't care. They put their nictating eyelids up. And anyone watching, if you don't know what those are, it's basically like goggles. They have basically two eyelids. But if they know they're going to be going into brush, they'll put these nictating eyelids up where it protects their eyes, but they can still see through them. And they put those up, and they just punch right through. And I mean, male red tails are cool, but I just, I can't get away from the female red tail. It's just so much fun, and they just believe that they are such badasses. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this next season with Xena. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Xena, but before I do, while we're on the subject of tear souls, um, you know, snowshoe hare, which a female red tail would be good on, and of course, you're not my sponsor, and I have an awesome sponsor, and she's giving me some great counsel. But in your years of opinions, working strictly with red tails, we have a lot of rough grouse here. Do you think that the Tearsel would have a better chance against the rough grouse than the?
Um, how big are the trees that where the grouse are? Like how tall are the trees? I guess.
They're tall. I mean, not they're tall. I mean, they're
Okay.
probably 3 stories, 2 3 stories.
Okay. Yeah, the red tails like to get up high, and like I said, and they get their speed from gravity and their weight. A female red tail can be faster than a male, uh, just being heavier and coming up from a much higher, perch. But it just depends. A grouse is so fast. You would have to have the right slip, and I would think if the red tail's not on that bird out of the hole, you know how they go up, and once they hammer down, the red tails, it's done. And that's probably with a lot of birds. You got to get them on the jump. But and I don't know. You may have a shot at getting them on the ground. I don't know if do the grouse walk much up there? Would a red tail see the grouse up ahead
Yeah.
walking?
So the the, the grouse, they even hole up in the snow, to stay out of the weather, and you'll see these little, breathing holes, where the grouse are, and oftentimes they'll punch out of the snow when they're scared.
Yeah,
So my hope is get my red tail up in the trees before we flush the grouse, and then the grouse are flushing up, and the hawk is coming down.
yeah. I don't, you know, that's a tough one. I think you're just going to have to do it and find that out yourself. If you get a female your first year, you can always try to get a male the second year, unless you just have an absolute rock star that you want to keep. Or you could start with a male and then go to a female. And it's a different world up there where you are than what I'm used to hunting down here. But for a level flight, a male is going to be faster than a female. But higher up, if the bird's higher up, I'm going to say the female is going to get more speed coming down. Now, body mass, holding a snowshoe hare down. I've never seen a snowshoe hare in person, but I would imagine they're pretty big. Uh, a male red tail is still going to hold them down. Now, it's going to have a lot better chance if it grabs it by the head or the neck. If it grabs a snowshoe hare by the back end, it's going to go for a ride. So, but that's true with anything. Like hares, hawks. They're not as big, and if they grab a hold of, a cottontail by the back end, a big cottontail, I've seen them get bucked off of a cottontail. So, just depends on what happens. But I think you're going to learn a lot in these first couple years up there.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. So tell me about Xena.
Xena, I got her late. Just the whole fiasco with the birds that I had trapped prior to her last season. So I got her late. I think I got her like mid-December, December 16th, something like that. I didn't start hunting her till the end of January, just to get her weight down. I mean, I trapped her at 59 ounces. And
She's a
like I said, her
monster.
weight window, yeah, her weight window's 43 to 44 ounces. And it's funny, a lot of falconers, they like grams, which I agree. Grams, like I use grams for a kestrel, I use grams for, uh, the Cooper's hawk, and grams on that little male red tail. But when you're talking about a huge female red tail, I don't think grams are necessary. I don't need to, like, 43.4 and 43.5, there's not a big difference there. And when her weight went anywhere between 43 and 44 ounces, I don't need to cut it down to,
That's
that small of a number. So yeah, I like grams, but, or ounces for my female red tails. But, no, she did well. We only got rabbits this past season. Tried to get her on squirrels. She took several shots at squirrels. She definitely is going after them. But our problem was, for the little bit of season we had last season, she would be chasing a squirrel in one tree, and she wouldn't stick with it. She would see another squirrel in another tree and then go after that, and then that one would get into a hole or whatever. It was just a constant running around. So once she gets a little more experience, she'll realize, hey, stay with what you got. I think we're going to have a lot more success on squirrels this season, and I'm going to have an actual full season to hunt with her. But the problem is I don't really mess with it until late October because you can't see anything, with the leaves and the brush and everything. So she can't see anything. The falconer can't see anything. So it's kind of a long wait till the leaves start dropping.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be interesting trying to figure things out here because we don't have any red tails that winter here, and actually, uh, red tails don't summer here either. I see them in the spring migration and I see them in the fall migration,
Oh wow,
but not only myself, but my friends, like we look and we look all summer long and we never see red tails. We see them late in the fall migration. We see them in the spring migration, but beating the bushes looking for red tails, and they're just not here. So it's going to be a real weird, interesting thing trying to figure out, what to hunt them on. Have you hunt crows before with red tail?
No, I haven't. And there's only to hunt crows. You can only hunt maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that. I remember seeing it in the regulations, uh, but no, that's I've never specifically gone after them. Now, when I had a male Harris hawk a couple seasons ago, and we were trying to hunt ducks. We had ducks in this pond, and Jeb and I were trying to flush them towards the Harris hawk, and these three crows came in and started dive bombing the Harris, and he started flying away. And as one crow came in to dive bomb the Harris, uh, the Harris turned upside down and reached out and actually pulled a couple feathers off the crow. And I don't think the crows have ever seen a Harris hawk before in Ohio, and they were gone as soon as they were gone. So yeah, they got it. But that's the closest I've ever come to catching a crow. And the two ducks I got with my red tails, that was just by chance. It was the right slip. I was squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting, and the hawk saw the ducks. One was in a farm pond in some cow pasture, and the other one was in a shallow bay of a lake. And she flew out and landed in a tree. Both times she flew out and landed in a tree right above the ducks, and she just waited for me to come flush them. And as soon as I flushed them, she would just drop straight down onto the duck and right into the water. Both times went right into the water, and I went for a swim. Unfortunately, one of the times was in January. My wife was actually with me. I threw my phone on the bank, and she's like, "Do not go in that water." And I went right into the water and got my hawk. And the both times the ducks were dead by the time I got them out. The talons were right into the skull, into the eye sockets of the ducks, and she grabbed him by the head both times. So it's pretty neat. But unfortunately, with the red tails, it's tough to consistently kill ducks. It's kind of got to be the right setup.
Yep. Have you or has anyone known? This is a personal question. Maybe I should have asked you offline. My sponsor and I chatted a little bit about it, but have you or anyone known ever reverse molted a red tail hawk? And I have really extreme winters up here, and really dark, long winters up here, and wondered a little bit about that.
I've not. I've actually never even heard of it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I was just curious about, I know they reverse molt some birds so that they can hunt them in the summer instead of hunting them over the winter season. So I didn't know if anyone had ever tried doing that. If anyone had ever tried doing that with a red tail before, but it was just
no,
just, just a thought.
it seems like when like our season goes out March 10th, and when the season's over, we are exhausted. I mean, we hunt hard. Well, the majority of us hunt hard, and when the season goes out, it's like you just kind of raise the bird's weight, throw them in the building, and I'll go down there and sit with her when play on my phone. And sit, I've got a chair right next to the hawk house, and I'll go hang out with her for a while, occasionally, or get her on the glove and sit in the barn. And but other than that, like the break, the mold is a nice break for us, at least for me. And that's when I pick up fishing. That's kind of the whole thing with the Fins and Talons YouTube channel was, I can do content all year round, and obviously, and it is for me. Falconry is way more interesting to people than fishing, and that's true for me too. But at least that way I could take a break from falconry and do the fishing side of it and post those videos. But yeah, by the time
That's
falconry season's rolling around
that's
and
my
the lake,
problem.
we're ready to
Yeah,
go,
that's my
ready to go
problem.
hunting.
Is both mushing and falconry are winter sports. I run sled dogs, and when I say I run sled dogs, I do distance mushing. So my dogs and I do 6 8 hour training runs, and that's 4 or 5 times a week. So it would be really really great if I could find some way of doing falconry more in the summer. And that's why I was curious about the whole reverse molting thing, but maybe it's just not going to happen.
Well, oh yeah, and I was getting a kick out of the ice all around your beard in those pictures. That was pretty funny. But
Yeah, we spend a lot of time out there.
yeah, um, I was cold just looking at the pictures. But you can hunt. You could hunt kestrel in the off season from rabbits and squirrels. You could hunt sparrows and starlings with a kestrel. If you had a Cooper's hawk, you could hunt sparrows, starlings, crows, pigeons. Um, the crows. There may be a season on them up in Maine. I don't know what that is. Uh, and then if you end up in a few years getting a goshawk, they can still molt their feathers. And still hunt them. Um, but you run the chance of having like a stress, like a fret mark on the feathers, just having their weight lower. But that's just trial and error. Maybe you could try it sometime. But yeah, with the red tails, it's like I'm not going to hunt sparrows and starlings and crows and pigeons with it. And it's a nice break, in the spring and summer from it. But I did pull a Merlin permit this year from Ohio, and it may be something I'll try if I can get my hands on a Merlin. They're not real common here in Ohio, but it's something that I could do once I put the red tail up. Well, I would hunt it all year, but when I put the red tail up for the off season, I could take the Merlin out for sparrows and starlings and doves and pigeons and all that. Um, actually, I don't think doves come in until September 1st, but the pigeons and sparrows and starlings, I could hunt in the summertime. So that's something I'm looking at.
So
So,
as we start to wrap up here, I'm curious, and maybe you never got it on film, and so no one knows the story. What is your craziest falconry hunt? What's the first one that pops in your mind when you think about your most epic falconry story?
um, the best ones are probably when it's by myself. Unfortunately, uh, I'd say two different hunts. Um, I had a I had a red tail. So one of my female red tails, I don't remember which one it was. I was at a farm. It's about 400-acre farm. I had permission to hunt in eastern Ohio, and apparently I had turned. As I walked through the woods, I turned this big fox squirrel around a tree, and my red tail could see the squirrel. Well, I heard her bells, and I looked back, and she's flying on a flat flight right towards me, about 30 feet up. And I mean, she was just pumping, 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 coming towards the tree I was standing next to. And I looked up, I didn't see anything. And she never slowed down. And that's one thing I was talking about with female red tails. They are just savages. But she flew as hard as she could into the side of this. It was a shagbark hickory. And I thought she killed herself. She hit so hard. And she stuck up there for a second. And like the way she was just kind of hanging there, I'm like, she's dead. I've never seen a bird hit something like that. And she came down. She hit a squirrel. It was a big fox squirrel. She brought it down, and she was fine. I thought for sure she would have broke something, but they're built for that stuff. That was cool. My brother and my dad was hunting with me once. It was my first red tail, probably about 18, 19 years ago, and the red tail was chasing a fox squirrel. We were all standing there, and the fox squirrel jumped out of the tree and landed on the ground between my dad and I. And it was on some rock, like a little bit of rock. And the squirrel just started to run once it hit the ground, and the red tail hit it right on the neck and broke its neck on impact. It's one of the only kills that I've seen where the red tails kill on impact. But that was pretty cool. And just you know, nothing too crazy other than the ducks. The ducks were pretty neat watching them catch those. But a lot of memories made with them, though. Good memories.
What to someone like me that's not lived in fox squirrel country, can you describe what a fox squirrel is to me as compared to a gray or a red squirrel?
So the fox squirrels are more like independent, and they're a lot bigger. If a fox squirrel runs into a hole of a tree and there's another fox squirrel in there, most likely it's going to get run back out. They're more territorial. Whereas a gray squirrel, if there's five gray squirrels in a hole and another gray squirrel runs in, they're like, "Hey, come on in," Um, that's a big difference. And then just the size. I mean, the gray squirrels are so much smaller than the fox squirrels. I mean, we have massive
Wow.
fox squirrels here in Ohio, uh, huge. And I actually have a scar on the back of my hand from about 18 years ago. I thought my hawk had a hold of the squirrel's head as a big fox squirrel, and she had her wings mantled over the squirrel, and I reached in to help her, and she actually had the back end of the squirrel, which I found out real quick because as soon as my glove went in there, it bit through my gauntlet, through my leather gauntlet, right into my hand. So
No
it
kidding.
got me. That squirrel went on my grill. I don't eat a whole lot of squirrels. That's usually food for the hawk, but I put that one on my grill. I made sure I ate him for lunch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love watching fins and talons. I want to encourage everyone who's listening or watching to check out your YouTube channel. What's next? Like, what are you excited about? What's on the agenda for fins and talons? What do we have to look forward
Um,
to?
I would say what I'm really looking forward to is the two apprentices I've got this season. We're going to be trapping for both of them, and the first one, Emily, she'll be trapping the first half of August with me. So we're going to look. They both want female red tails. They both want to basically hunt everything, but they want to hunt squirrels. So my recommendation is, if you're going to hunt squirrels, you want the biggest, nastiest red tail you can find out there. Just lessens the chance of getting a bite. So yeah, taking them out, and then I do have some permits for myself. The only bird that I would probably keep would be a merlin, as I was saying. But honestly, I'm more excited for my apprentices. I mean, I just remember how much fun it was to get out there and trap your first bird, and the manning process. It's kind of intimidating putting your first red tail on your glove, and it's right there in your face. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think my subscribers are going to be pretty excited about seeing that process too.
Well, I know I'm looking forward to it, man. Thank you for taking the time with me today, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.